Good morning. It's another sunny morning here in Cork, Ireland on Wednesday, March 11th, 2020. And this morning I want to remember my other gay brother, Dan. He was the oldest in our family, and he became a Catholic priest. And I think he struggled a lot with his sexuality, and he kept it a secret all his life, holding on to shame about it. Of course, all of that bullshit from the Catholic Church, you know. But way back in the 1980s, I was out of the closet. I came out in 1975 when I met my first boyfriend in university. And he knew, and my mother knew, and I shared it with all of my other brothers and my sister and all. Well, Dan came out to me. I can't remember exactly when, but I remember I had done I don't know how to describe it, a self-empowerment workshop, especially designed for LGBT people. It was Gay-S. They called it the Experience Weekend. I did that in Texas in the early 1980s. And it was very, very helpful for me, you know, coming home to my authentic self. Well, I shared that experience with my brother Dan, and he did that weekend as well. Very powerful. Lots of exercises about coming home to your authentic self. And I remember that we were invited to attend another workshop weekend in Los Angeles. And Dan and I were both living in Dallas at that time. This would have been in the middle 1980s, maybe around 1984, 1985, something like that. So we drove from Dallas to Los Angeles, and my brother Dan was with his boyfriend, whose name was also Dan, and he was called Little Dan. And he was quite a prankster. He had a great sense of humor and all. And the fourth person in the car was my friend Scott Kennedy, who also struggled a great deal with his sexuality and also his politics. He was a gay Republican. So we went to this workshop out in Los Angeles and had a wonderful time. And I remember we were having dinner after it was all over, before we headed back to Dallas. We were having dinner at a beautiful restaurant in Malibu, California, overlooking the Pacific Ocean, and the sun had already set, I think, or was setting. It was just gorgeous, just a beautiful, beautiful setting. And I remember having a conversation with my brother Dan at that time that he was giving serious thought to leaving the priesthood to become a travel agent, I think is what he wanted to do at the time. Well, you know, I loved my brother unconditionally, you know, and you know, whatever he wanted to do, I absolutely supported him. And I thought, you know, well, what a wonderful opportunity for him to truly come home to himself and live the kind of life that he wanted to. But, you know, he never did that. He shrank from it. And I think, I don't know if that was at the same time that he was dealing with what would become the great scandal of the beginning of the clerical sex abuse crisis in the United States and globally. His assistant at his parish was Rudy Koss, who, you can read all about this on Google, and all the trial transcripts are there. Dan knew what Rudy was doing with those altar boys in you know, in his rectory room and all. And he could have done more than just write a letter to the Monsignor. He could have called the police, but he didn't. But he absolved himself, so he believes that his hands are clean. But one of those boys committed suicide. So it's a very ugly story. And as far as I know, Dan is still living his inauthentic life as a closeted gay Republican priest. Well, lazim gay. So that's my brother Dan. Be fabulous.